Okay, well, it goes without saying that the best movie series in the entire world, The Godfather Part 1 and 2, are masterpieces. True masterpieces of film that haven't necessarily been topped since. Good movies come and go, but movies like these two are just something special and spectacular. Now, I'm sure there's 100 million videos on YouTube explaining people's thoughts and opinions on these wonderful films, but I'm going to break it down in a way that kind of examines a little bit more of the picture, a little bit more in depth and into my personal thoughts and opinions on these legendary movies. And I'm perfectly aware that there's a third movie, although we're not getting into that movie just because I tend to focus on these two movies. I like The Godfather 3. I don't mind it at all. It's a worthy watch, especially after binging these two, which is utterly impossible to stop once you've started. But we're going to focus just on the two ones. But I will bring up parts of The Godfather Part 3 in this video. Now, in essence, The Godfather 1 and 2 centers around Vito and Michael Corleone, a family, and their trials and tribulations as they grow up and move on with life and certain moments within both their lives. The Corleone crime family is pretty bad, all things considering. I mean, they do crime, they're involved in bad things, but I mean, on the surface, they're actually just people, and you see their motivations on many different ways in this series. You empathize with them, and it is a very, very stunning movie that it allows you to sympathize with these people who've done abhorrent things just basically to survive. And I think that's one of the master classes of this set of movies is that you see a side of it that's so realistic, so believable, so authentic that many points, in fact, throughout all of The Godfather 1 and 2, you don't even feel like you're watching a movie. Actors playing their parts, actors playing their roles. You feel like you have a first person view on a realistic Italian crime family or Sicilian crime family, and you feel in a way that you're an observer. You're not. There's no camera. There's no movie. It's just you're seeing these people live out their lives because it's so authentic and it's so realistic feeling, and that's one of the most amazing aspects of them. Now, like many people, I've seen these movies many times, and I always pick up on new details every time I watch them. They're that good. But I mean, I would say in a toss-up between the two, there's really no victor because both are great. Both are amazing in their own right. And both, once you've started committing to a watch, you will not stop because they're so interesting. Now, it's easier to pick my favorite character because I'm a massive Pacino fan, but Michael Corleone is just incredible. He is a character that breaks through all boundaries, he breaks through all elements. He is in his prime as an actor. He's lovable, he's likable, he's honorable, he's malicious, he's evil at times. He's a character that has so many dimensions and so many ideologies that it's impossible to keep up with him. And him, in his own ways, the puppet master, controls your thoughts and emotions at all times. But there's plenty of great side characters, as it were, that are just amazing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take an in-depth analysis, maybe 20 seconds or so of each character, and just kind of explain what I think about them, explain what their processes are, and just give you a really quick thought shakedown of kind of what I expect to preview of these characters and these emotions. And of course, starting with the greats, I would imagine that we would have to start with Tom Hagen, who's a fantastic character, and I love him every step of the way. Robert Duvall just does an incredible job, and there's really nothing more to say that he's just a spectacular character, and he's enjoyable to watch, and he's ultra intelligent. But beyond that, we have Vito Corleone, who's the main character essentially in the first movie, and he's not almost at all in Marlon Brando's form in the second movie. But I mean, he just steals the show with the first one, despite Michael being so amazing, despite the opening sequence being so poignant. It's he Marlon Brando just owns the show. He is an incredible character, but in my opinion, doesn't surpass Michael. The power and authority he holds over others is very admirable. But I mean, there's other characters that don't get as much time to shine as I wish, and I'm a massive fan of the one and only Sonny from the first movie. I mean, he's just so cool. He's the fucking coolest guy ever. He's aggressive. He's that intense gangster, and I only wish we could get more of him. You know, maybe one day with AI we can create a whole Godfather origin Sonny story. But I mean, those times are far gone, and we only get so much of Sonny. Sonny represents power in the family, but in on the flip side, nobody could have expected that it would be Michael who would be the one who holds the true power, the strongest of all of them, and ultimately the most successful. Because if you go into The Godfather Part 2, he has become something so much bigger, so much more extensive than his father ever could be, that he's touching shoulders with politicians. He's touching shoulders with world-renowned gangsters. He's become something that he's just so much more than what his father set out to be. And in many ways, Michael and his father defeat the old school classic style of gangster, that holds power over others and ruthlessly, and he becomes something that is just more sinister and more powerful than what the old school adage of power would be. And fuck, is Clemenza ever awesome as well. He's such a sweet character in both the first movie and the second movie in his younger self. You instantly recognize that it's Clemenza. And you know what? The second movie, in the past segments, does such a great job of making the older characters like look young again. And you know from looking at him which characters are which. It's fucking awesome. I love the older segments in the second movie. It's historic, it's deep, and it's incredible. And I think over the course of time, you get to see who is like the perfect hitman for the family. And I think that goes to Al Neary, who is just such a cunning character. Almost it lays in the shadow. You don't even think of him as a mainline character because he's so elusive. But there he is, one of the most ruthless henchmen in the Corleone family. Just not even a side, not even a main character, but he conducts so many main parts in the story. And we get a little bit to the third here because, the third just never captures any of the magic that the second one has, but it's an admirable attempt at doing what they thought was impossible. Characters like Rocco and such were so good in the other movies because they were elusive. They were hidden in the shadows, kind of like how gangsters back then worked. They were powerful, but yet they were completely hidden from the public view. And I think as Michael gets bigger and stronger and more powerful, he becomes to a level that can't be contained anymore. Because he's been hidden and secretive for so long, that it eventually catches up with him, and it's a real nod to what happened in real life. The way that these gangsters were once so strong and held so much power, but ultimately they lost it all. And nowadays, of course, um, La Costa Nostra still exists, but in many ways they were defeated. Michael's empire did crumble. And the fact that Michael made it out alive and not locked up is just a feat of how great this story is. So the third one has merits. And that leads us to like the first movie because while both movies are incredibly authentic and feel like the real thing, I just don't think a thing like The Godfather Part 1 could be made in today's world. It feels so authentic. It feels so amazing. And it's a movie that came out in 1972. So it's like, could they even have made a movie like this today with all the authenticity? And the answer is possibly no. There's just no way to make a movie this authentic feeling anymore. And it would be amazing to see someone try. You know, we essentially just don't get good gangster movies anymore. They're movies that kind of transcend time a bit because they're always awesome and they always feel good. You know, gangster movies are just very wicked. They they make you feel kind of a certain way, and I just don't think that they make very good gangster movies anymore. I wasn't the biggest fan of The Irishman, so maybe they did just kind of stop making these movies just because they think that they would be failures. They think that they wouldn't work very well. But I mean, in the right set of hands, I believe truly that good gangster movies can still be made to this day, given the right set of hands. And maybe that was a sign of the times with Godfather 3 is maybe we've come to a point where these types of movies are just hard to make nowadays, and maybe there's this draw away from boss, mafia style movies. But you know, you could make a great gangster movie today. You could even make a Godfather 4 if you had enough creative talents, if you had enough creative merits. But what we're seeing in modern movies is that we're losing that creativity. We're losing that drive, that passion that people had back then to make movies like The Godfather Part 1 and 2. They're movies that are just so amazing and so interesting and so badass that people just can't capture that anymore. And they don't have that level of drive and will. I mean, the historic parts of Godfather 2 are just simply stunning. It's a it's a window into a different time altogether. And I like movies like Gangs of New York. I loved it just because you have a vision of what the past used to be like, and these struggles and these trials and tribulations that these people went through that are so alien to us now with the advent of smartphones and all the digital tracking we have. These people didn't have to worry about any of that. They only had to worry about their fingerprints and barely that. It allows you a window into just a different time in Earth's history, and not a very long time ago. I mean, the 1940s and 50s are not even 100 years ago. And look how much our world has changed. And look at how different things used to look back then, and the things that people had to worry about, and how these crime families operated. It just like is changed tenfold nowadays. The true horror of The Godfather Part 1 and 2 is that you never really know when you can get taken out. And you never know, and even sometimes you do know it's coming. But, a violent end is a violent end, and it's coming for you if you choose this life. It's the famous gangster statement, live by the gun, die by the gun, live by the sword, die by the sword. They choose this life, like they say in the movie. They choose this life, they choose their fate. They want to live like this, they get to die like that. And it's some of the scenes are just truly brutal in this movie. Just fucking brutal. Like, I mean, the one the one part that always gets me is how when Clemenza goes and the other guy takes out that one guy in the car, just on a routine trip, just drives him out to the country, pops him, walks away, take the cannoli like it's nothing, you know? That guy saw it coming because he was a rat, and he knew that he had chosen a bad path, and he knew he was going to get what was coming to him, and look what happened. The mere fact that people can be so brutal to one another to take each other out over money or power is something that human race has grappled with since its inception. Um, we are a species that dominates each other and desires power. And what greatest way to display this fact is a illegal crime family who is up to all kinds of nefarious goods, who will kill to save themselves or to get ahead, as Michael had to do and knew he had to do. So the ins and outs of The Godfather 1 and 2 are very complex, and there are a million channels that explore every little detail. But on a deeply philosophical level, I mean, The Godfather is all about power, all about manipulating others to get ahead, to become successful, to take revenge down deep into your heart, bottle it up for the right moment, for the right time to strike, to be intelligent enough to push others away to get ahead. That is what The Godfather 1 and 2 are about. They're using people to attain their goals. And that is something that is just truly dark and evil. And I think that Michael's transition is all about how he became someone who is good and ultimately became someone who is evil. And he knew that he made this change in himself. And by losing all the ones he loved along the way, Michael realized that it wasn't worth it in the end. It wasn't worth it to take all this power and become this strong, only to, have lost everyone he loved all around him. And another side of Godfather 1 and 2 that's very poignant is the fact that this business, uh, this gangster lifestyle attracted all the most worst pieces of shit on the planet. And although there are a few good ones deep down in their heart, like Michael, there are a lot of horrid, horrid, horrid people in this world. And criminality seems to attract the absolute worst of humankind. And that's what manifested in Hyman Roth is that, and some of the other enemies of Michael's, is that they are awful people. They're truly awful people, and they've gotten so much success from that awful nature. So, I mean, here we have it. I mean, if you haven't watched The Godfather 1 and 2, it's an essential watch for everybody because even if you're not into gangster flicks, it has some other very interesting things. It's deeply historic. You can get lots out of it. Sonny is a fucking incredible character. And just, it's overall just a very, very good adventure. It plays out almost like a video game. You know, and this was how many years before video games even barely even existed. We can translate these stories well into video games because in many ways there's a unique story to be told here. There's a whole world of possibilities for these characters, but they choose certain paths, and those paths led down certain avenues, whether it good or bad. And that's a kind of a truth of all of life. We choose these paths, and they take us down certain roads. And in The Godfather, there are many mistakes that people make that cost them everything. And there are many decisions that people made that give them everything as well. So, I mean, it is a story that is just deeply human. And who knows? We probably will never get a Godfather Part 4, but I mean, anything's possible in this world. Just like the Corleone family, anything could have been possible from them. It started from just one man and became something so great. Potentially maybe in some future we get an incredible Godfather 4 just out of the blue, and everyone loves it, and we've continued adding to this amazing story that I'm sure, like many other people, I've watched just so many times and it never gets old. So I fucking love The Godfather 1 and 2. They're incredible movies. I'll always watch them and I'll always have them close to my heart.